Welcome, Pathfinders, to the Find the Path podcast interview with Mr. Luis Loza. Hello, Luis.
Hello. I hope that's one of those good, excited screams. Rather
That's
than
one of those like
one of,
fangirl screams,
okay.
Oh my gosh, Luis Loza!
I know. I am, of course, Rick Sandage. I am one of your hosts. I am joined by the esteemed Mr. Jordan Jenkins, my co-host
Sup,
here.
folk?
And we are, of course, joined by Luis Loza, the developer for the Lost Omens line's Paizo's own.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me back. I'm glad you're not tired of me yet.
I am glad we can have you here. Let's see. So, yeah, we've had you here. We, of course, just recently finished Paizocon 2021. And as a Paizocon tradition, we get together with Luis and chat about Paizocon things. As we were just discussing before we went live, usually this is in a back room or back hallway somewhere immediately after the preview banquet. But we're having to make do during these times. So I think all of us are a little bit more comfortable, though.
Yeah, much more relaxed. No need to scramble to get everything set up.
Yeah, get out of the
two
way.
minutes after everything's been announced.
So, yeah. How was the con, Luis?
It was good. It was great to see. Great to get to have so many people around on it. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know we had like hundreds of games going on, which was just amazing. It was fun to be able to take my time with answering questions and stuff. I had an AMA channel going where you could come in, drop a question, I could come back and take my time to answer it. So I would get to do kind of fun stuff with that and shoot you links for someone asking what kind of music do you listen to when writing, and I got to shoot them YouTube links to here's the music, instead of just saying, oh, I listen to this and that. Oh no, here's some examples, stuff like that you can't really do in person. Take advantage of the medium, and then getting to chat with people, watching the excitement on the streams was great. It's always fun to see people get excited for everything that we tell them about. Even tiny little things like, I don't know, this thing gives you a +1 to your fort save. Oh my goodness, that's great. Yeah, stuff like that. Little things. I know we were sharing here's a class feat and people are just eating it up. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2E, a +1 to fort saves is a pretty huge deal. So
Yeah.
Honestly, a +1 to anything. Well, yeah, that's great. I'm glad that that you had a lot of fun with that, and I felt like it was kind of interesting as I believe this was an intentional thing. I think Paizo decided to kind of break up, instead of just having like one big preview banquet, kind of break up the announcements throughout the con.
Well, there was the keynote at the beginning where we just said, you know what, it's easier if we tell you everything up front so we don't have to dance around it, and then go into further detail on that. So there's already shotgun blast of a bunch of information, and stick around, we'll tell you more details on each of those. So I think it just kind of builds up the excitement throughout the whole weekend, rather than have to sit around for 2 days, then get excited, and then come back and suddenly have questions about it. You can take your time to also come up with questions that you want, or more information you want to learn about and stuff too, with the whole Discord and everything.
Yeah, I think that's the really great part about doing it, on Discord or doing it remotely, is getting to have a little bit more intimate access to because I know that after panels everybody always swarms up and is asking last minute questions and things, and it's nope, gotta go to my next panel, sorry. And it's really nice to get to have those those questions answered, and it not be a kind of a struggle to get some time to maybe ask Eric, Mona something, or getting good old JB to answer weird questions about Galarian lore.
It's our nickname for Jason Bowman. So I don't think I've ever called him JB to his face.
I don't think I would ever call him that to his face.
Yeah, so before we go much further, I did want to mention that we are going to be taking questions from our chat, so feel free to drop any questions in the side there. And Jordan, do you want to be the one in charge of copy pasting those into the document?
I will absolutely do that, yes.
Fantastic. because I tend to get distracted and then I get to the end and then I have to scroll back through. It's a whole thing. So I suppose we should dive into things so that we don't, while we have Luis here and take up some of his valuable time when he's not churning out magic at the Magic Factory over there. So let's go ahead and touch on a couple of the upcoming books in the Lost Omens line. Now, I believe that there are 4 books slated for release right now.
Yes, I think you're right. Yep.
The next one being just next month, where we get the Mwangi Expanse book, the next out to release. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the year, but I'm very excited for this book. I'm more than happy to talk about it a little bit now.
Well, what do you want to know? What should I tell you? It's only 314 pages, 312 pages to rummage through. I'm sure I can find something to talk about.
Is that you admitting that you have a copy handy?
Yeah, it's my PDF right here.
Dang it. Rub it in all of our faces.
Yes. Perks of the job. You get to see not only it put together, but then you get to have it immediately when it's done.
Yeah. Well, I imagine you're also a contributor, of course, for that, beyond just probably being the
just a
part
developer.
of the development team. Oh, just a developer.
Just a developer.
Oh, well then.
I mean, I contribute in my development, right? I tweak words, I add stuff here and there.
I assume as a developer, you still get a free copy also.
Yes, definitely.
Nice.
I should hope so. I do want to throw something out here just to kind of address this, because I know we got a question from Tom in our Discord about this, and I think, Tom from our Patreon about this, and I think someone in our Discord also. It was originally slated as a June release. I believe it now has a definitive date of July 7th, or at the very least for the PDF. We've gotten a couple questions about like changing in the scheduling, and of course, I believe all of that basically just has to do with the global shipping crisis that has affected everything in everyone's lives.
There is a thread on our forums where the customer service team has gone in and kind of explained things. From what I've gathered, based on what they put, there was something going on at customs. It sounds like there might have just, customs occasionally randomly checks containers, and then that holds things up. It might have been that we just rolled poorly on our check and happened to get pulled on that. And it held things up. I believe Mwangi Expanse was slated for late June already, so I don't know if it's changed too much. It might have been a few weeks off.
Oh, okay.
We were expecting it to start shipping mid to late June, as it was already. So I don't think that's experiencing any delays that I've been aware of at the moment. There's always time for things to change, but at the moment I think it's just the stuff that was slated to come out May.
Okay.
And so we'll see how that all goes, because I think there's just a bunch of stuff piling all together for the end of this month to come out with that July 7th release, including Malevolence and an entire AP and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I figured we just gotta get that out of the way here at the top and then dive into things. So sure. Jordan, I think we did have a question from our Discord.
We do. Law Ninja 7 asks, any more Magambian class feats, archetypes, skill feats in the book?
So Mwangi Expanse, we really, really wanted to push a lot of the flavor and lore in this book. There are occasional rules options. Obviously, we have 6 ancestries. We have a bunch of monsters coming in and the occasional magic item and stuff like that. But for the most part, you should expect lore. There's not any new Magambian feats, anything like that here. I believe you might be able to see some expansion on those ideas in Strength of Thousands, but don't quote me on that. But I know that some of the stuff is getting... I mean, every adventure has a toolbox that adds more material and stuff. So there's a good chance there. And there's always the possibility of more stuff coming through for the Magambia archetypes and kind of all the other existing archetypes in the future. I think we've reached the point where, at least personally, as in my design opinion, I feel like we don't necessarily need new archetypes every other month or whatever. But I think we could definitely expand on existing archetypes in going forward, because a lot of the themes that you would want with an archetype are already covered with what's in the APG or already out there.
Awesome. Now, I do think I had this as a question a little bit later, but since you brought this up now, I'll go ahead and ask this now. Uh, so the Mongi Expanse is kind of a book that does tie in directly with the 6-book adventure path that you have coming up. Is that going to be kind of an intentional thing once more like 6 books of adventure paths come up, or?
I think if things line up well enough, we're not beholden to always do that.
Yeah.
If you remember during the 1E days, like here comes Hell's Rebels, here comes Hell's Vengeance. Let's put out a Cheliax book a couple months before that. A Syrian book in advance of Mummy's Mask, so on and so forth. There would be a lot of that, but because these books are a lot bigger and need a lot more runway to get going, we don't necessarily always assume that that's going to be the case. There might be 6-part APs planned for the future that don't necessarily have a tie-in Lost Omens book. Some of them might even come out after the AP to show you, like, all right, here's this AP that happened, and maybe a year or two down the line, now here's a related Lost Omens book. Let's see what all shook up and how things turned out after that AP. So I think that's definitely a possibility, but don't assume that it'll always have. But when it does work out, we definitely do want to do that. In this case, Mongi Expanse worked out really well because it let Ron save a lot of space by not needing to tell you, all right, here's the city of Nantambu, and then give you 8 pages of what Nantambu's like. You can just say, go look at that Mongi Expanse book. That tells you everything you need to know. There's the map and all the other stuff. I'm just gonna fill in some extra details.
So kind of let them keep the back matter a little bit more focused towards what's pertinent for use in the adventure, and not necessarily going, if they decide to walk off down this road, what's down there?
Yeah.
Beyond the scope of the adventure kind of thing.
Exactly.
So
we do have another question. This comes from our very own Jess, who, of course, does not surprise me because she asks questions because she's so excited for this. She says, I'd love to know more about the Quaddle heritage for Aasimars. What's your approach to designing that heritage and others like it?
So she's referring to something I homebrewed and put on my website, luisloza.com, by the way.
Awesome.
So that's not
okay, because I was like, I don't know what that is, but that does not sound like it's Magambian with Quaddle as the name.
I was gonna say, I thought I saw that recently, but I was like, did I just imagine this?
There are definitely Quaddles in the Mongi Expanse, but so I guess it can be tangentially related, but it's not official Paizo content. I have a Patreon and a blog where I put stuff together, and sometimes I just get flashes of inspiration and write whatever the heck I want because I can. In this case, I have a friend who really likes Aasimars, and he's like, Quaddles are cool. You should let me play a Quaddle Aasimar sometime. And I'm like, sure, why not? I should set it up. In this case, I look at what the lineages for the other versatile heritages have. So, the Aasimar has the Angel Blooded and all the other versions that you can pull on. So they all seem to, at the very least, have 2 feats, one at first level for your lineage and one at 9th level that gives you magic of some kind. So I'm like, okay, I'll go with that. So for the first level ability, I just kind of thought, what can Quaddles do? They can fly. How can that be represented at first level without actually flying? And came up with the ability to give them like a really big jump that they can do once per day. But a lot of that stuff is just looking at the themes of what the lineage is trying to pull from. So if it's pulling from a specific type of creature or a specific theme like an element or something, and then using that to come up with a relatively, hopefully balanced feature that you can tack on. Luckily now with the APG and the Ancestry Guide out, there's a lot more examples of what you can or can't really do with Ancestry feats.
That actually raises an interesting question, because I remember Jason Bowman at one point mentioned the balance of the game being very mathematically driven, and being able to like have a lot of math and charts and like spreadsheets that could tell them if stuff is balanced. How do you balance like the kind of, like you're talking about, very creative aspects of coming up with these abilities? Like, is there some kind of guideline that you follow, or is it just kind of you feel it out?
So as a developer with any of our books, we have not just developers working on it. We now have a lead from the editing team and a lead from the design team. So a lot of these have been Mark Seifter for the Lost Omens books. We can say, hey, Mark, here's this thing, look it over. He knows the game inside and out, and he can tell us whether or not something's within parameters. There's a lot of like guidelines that we send out to our authors and stuff to kind of get them into that, within the ballpark, within spitting distance of what we want for the game. And there are some things that you might notice if you look at ancestry feats. You'll notice that a lot of the time the 5th level ones, if they give you some kind of innate spell, it seems to be a 1st level spell, and there seems to be a lot of benchmarks and stuff like that are, there's a design guide that the team follows, and they help keep all of that lined up. I, not being a designer, don't have the full insight on all of those, but there's a lot of things that I think you can pick up if you look through the game, where you notice a lot of patterns and things that are consistent in terms of like when bonuses start to scale and things like that. We even explain some of those, like in the game master guide, with creating new items. We'll say at around this level, your item bonus should be +1, and then up here +2, and up here +3, and so on and so forth. So there are definitely a lot of design parameters that they have in place that really help guide a lot of the design stuff. And if we need it to be creative, we can definitely just say, all right, let's figure out the flavor and kind of work that out with Mark or whoever the design lead is, and then work from there. So it's like, well, maybe we just express it as it takes 2 actions. There's some flavor that explains what it is, and then it gives you a bonus, or it does like it leads to a result where someone needs to maybe make a save or a skill check or something like that. But you can still land towards those numbers while expressing it the way you want through the flavor and the lore.
Awesome. A little bit of a seeing how the sausage gets made there. A little behind the scenes. So we have a couple other things to get to, but one last thing on the Mwangi Expanse. I'm going to lightning round you, Luis.
Sure.
What section of the book are you most excited for people to look at?
I'm gonna say chapter, I guess it's chapter 3. It's the section that the people, the Mwangi, which both covers the new ancestries, but also talks about the different ethnicities and the different types of dwarves and elves and all the other people that live there. So that's great. And I'm also excited for people to see the new gods that are showing up in that book. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
Ooh, new things for us to cast,
gods.
we were just running out of those on our Mummy's
That's
Mask.
true. We just recently finished with those. So now we'll have to expand. So next up, I believe it's in September. We're still looking at the Grand Bazaar coming out then.
Yes.
That's going to be my personal favorite coming out.
Yeah. I know we talked a lot about the Grand Bazaar in our previous interview. And so I suppose just kind of throw that same question out at you there. Is there a section of the Grand Bazaar that you're the most excited for people to delve into, Luis?
For sure, I want people to see the assistive items, so canes, wheelchairs. So those are going to be cool. But not only is it just like, here's all the basics you need to play the character that you want in the way that you want. But there's also like, well, imagine a world like Galarian. They have wheelchairs. How do they expand on that? We've mentioned that there's the Minotaur wheelchair that builds up energy, magical energy, and you can kind of do like a charge into people. But there's also things like there is like a prosthetic arm that you can get. And if you don't need a prosthesis, you can just have a version that just kind of slips over your other arm. So you can wear this regardless of who your character is, right? But I believe the way it works is you can hold a weapon in it, activate it, and it draws the weapon inside it. So the weapon's gone, but whenever you want, within reason, I don't think you can do this like willy-nilly, but I think you can activate it, and for like a minute, your arm transforms into that weapon, and you can just kind of have it whenever you need. So it's good for like slipping it past people when you don't want, but also good for sneak attacks and stuff like that.
Surprise.
And it's a reliable backup weapon. You can fight with something, and then if need to, just swap your arm in for that. The other really fun one, I think, is the Immovable Arm, which is just a prosthetic arm that has an immovable rod in it, and you can click it and activate it much like you would
nice
an immovable rod. So those are a section. That's a section I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy, whether or not you're a character that playing a character that needs these assistive items. There's still some fun stuff that anyone can use that I think is great. The other thing I'm looking forward to, and I don't think we've told people about this yet, but I'm going to say it now because it's my book line, and Eleanor's
You
not
can
here
do
to
what you
stop
want.
me.
You can tell us as much as you want about any book you choose.
There's a new group of runes. We have, you know, your runes for your weapons and your armor, but these are runes that we're calling accessory runes that are, is it a weapon or an armor rune? No, it's everything else. It can apply to your clothing. You can slap some on shields. I think there's one that you can slap on a vehicle. And they kind of just cover everything else you need. I believe you have to invest them like normal, but one I can think of is there's like a soft landing rune that you can slap onto a cape. We mentioned like a cape, or there's a few other things like your boots or an umbrella. And with this rune, you basically get the effects of featherfall when you go jump anywhere. It's like this rune.
Nice.
The accessory runes really open up the kind of stuff that you can do by saying you can kind of slap them on anything, your clothes, your pockets, your sailing ship. Here's one that lets it go faster with this accessory rune. So there's a lot of, I think, exciting design space for that, because suddenly we're just like, well, we know that we say runes are for your armor, for your weapons, but actually here's this other category that says you can actually kind of really put it on anything that you want, and just kind of go have fun with it. I'll leave people to discover what other runes are there, but those are some of the ideas that you'll be seeing in that
I like
book.
that. I like the idea of being able to like further customize your magical items to, you know, it's like, yeah, this is my cloak and it gives me like fire resistance or whatever it is, but also, I can featherfall with it.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the fun, and like, it suddenly makes you realize like, oh well, there's all these other things I'm wearing. Like, why not make them magical? Why not have this cool magical belt or magical boots or whatever? And it also opens up a lot of space where we can make a lot of lower level runes that don't require you to have armor and stuff, or just kind of really have fun with it when the time comes. Now, once that is out there, I like to refer to some of these things as new tech for design, where like we just explain like, here's this new system. Now it's open out to the world where people can homebrew, and we can play with that later in the future and stuff like that. So I think it missed the boat for Secrets of Magic, but it would be a perfect thing to expand in a book like that, where we could just be like, here's 10 pages of just a bunch of new accessory runes that go all over the place, and some are wild and ridiculous, and it can be really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting, because I've always had to do those trade-offs in 1E with magical items, where I'm like, I really like the effect of this and this, but they both take up my boot slot or whatever. So now you don't have to choose as much.
Yeah, you don't have to choose as much. I think there is still a limit where, like, if the item itself is an invested item, if they're like magical invested boots, you can't slap on a rune and have both effects. But I think every rune specifically calls out, like, there are like 4 or 5 different things you can slap it onto, so there's always something that you can wear that will have the rune regardless of what other stuff you're wearing.
Awesome.
Nice.
Now, I believe the next book in the lineup there is the Absalom City of Lost Omens.
Yes.
Which it seems like it now has a definitive November release.
It looks like we're getting close to having it come out and be a real book in people's hands. Yeah. Which is exciting.
So I know that you're, of course, part of the development team. I know that was Eric Mona, I believe, was kind of his baby.
Yes.
So anything there that you're very excited to talk about real quick?
Well, we had the Azarketi, the Gilman entry in Ancestry Guide, and because of the way things worked out, they kind of got left behind for the future in the Absalom book. They're not out yet. They're in the Absalom book, the main entries in that book. So we gave you the rules that are in that book. But specifically, you're going to be seeing the same rules. It's not like, you can be like, we tricked you and held out on a class feed or anything. But the thing you're missing is a lot of the cool artwork that came in that book for the Azarketi, which is going to be super, super cool. I think there's a lot of cool monsters coming in that way that I think end up, it's weird, like almost like time travel having to speak of it. Like, it will retroactively link up with Grand Bazaar stuff. There's like a new animal companion that would have premiered in Absalom, but then now it's in Grand Bazaar and you can take it as an animal companion and stuff like that. There's a lot of like cool stuff there. But just kind of like Manga Expanse, it is a lore. It's a beast of lore and flavor material. There's just so much stuff. I think every district has at least 10 pages worth of content, if not more. I'm sure it's actually a lot bigger than that.
I was going to say the book is massive.
Yeah.
I don't have the page count
plus,
in front of me, but
plus adding the dozens, I think maybe Eric has even said like close to 100 pages of just like NPC blurbs and write-ups that kind of connect everyone throughout the city and tell you, all right, here's this person, here's the basic information. So if you need to stat them up, here it is, and give you a rundown of who they are. Plus, here's the other people that they know, and it makes this kind of twisted, intricate web of all the NPCs in the city, because it's the biggest city in the inner sea. Of course, it's going to have a lot of connections like that. So for GMs who are really interested in kind of making the city feel alive, all those connections will really help out. Or at the very least, they're great for kind of starting off a quest and being like, I can use this to kind of go wherever I need it to, because I can, if I need my players to be at point E, starting at point A, I can find all the different ways to connect to point E when the time comes.
I'm curious, are we going to see the return of the relationship charts from the Lost Omens Legends?
No, I don't think those are in this book, because that would be unreadable. I think how many of these are, I think we would need to have a separate poster that pops out of the book that just tells you like all the different connections to properly be able to see that, because otherwise it'd be enormous. With Legends, we had the benefit of being able to break them into like distinct like themes and chunks, and like, oh, these people are connected to this story and these people are connected to that idea and this, stuff like that. But because everyone is kind of in some way connected, you'd be looking at one of those ridiculous relationship charts for like Kingdom Hearts to explain like who everyone is, how they like
I gave up
each other
after
and all
two,
that stuff.
so.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, should we get to the big event, Jordan?
Yes, and chat is telling us that the book is over 400 pages.
Yeah, I believe it.
Over 400.
Yeah, it was shooting for about 320 or so when we started, and now that we've added more and more to it, 400 seems like it's right on the money.
So what you're telling me is for the GM workout, between that and the core rule book, you know, lots of lugging them around.
I was going to say, we need to play in pocket editions already, and it'll be like 1,000 pages.
Yeah. Pocket editions are basically regular size books. Yeah, I suppose let's go ahead and jump into the main event here, at the very least the thing that was announced that I am super excited for,
the new hotness,
which is Monsters of Myth.
Yes.
Which I believe is actually gonna creep in at the end of this year also. It's not a 2022 release.
Yeah, it's shooting for November. So we had, what even came out this year? Ancestry Guide, Mongi, Expanse, Grand Bazaar, and Monsters of Myth on the schedule, and then kind of Absalom is kind of sneaking in there.
Jumped in the queue.
Yeah.
So it is an exciting new announcement slated for the end of this year, and the teaser for this reads: "Release the beast! Exclamation point. Heroes abound in the Age of Lost Omens, but for every great hero, there's an even greater monster. Lost Omens Monsters of Myth provides details on 20 of the most infamous and terrifying monsters from the Inner Sea region and beyond. Uncover the secrets of some of Galarian's greatest monsters, from the Sandpoint Devil to Fafnir, the father of Lenorms, and more. Monsters of Myth provides rumors, tales, and even treasures for the brave adventurers willing to face these legendary creatures." I am very excited for it. It sounds like a monstrous version of Lost Omens Legends, and it's very
That's exactly
exciting.
What we went in explaining it as to people. Like, we're doing Legends, but for monsters, and this time we're giving you stat blocks so you can go and fight them right away.
I was going to say, because there's always those people that are like, so what challenge rating is the Sandpoint Devil, if we wanted to homebrew it. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, so I got a number of questions about this. I'm sure that Jordan does as well. So I suppose let's go ahead and dig in. I'm sure our chat will also. So this is it's Lost Omens Legends covered 42 figures of the Inner Sea, whereas this book is covering 20.
Yes.
Assuming that they are the same size, I'm going to guess that the extra space is needed for, like, other than stat blocks. I'm curious, like, what else are we going to see in here?
So Legends was intentionally put together knowing that some entries will be longer than others. This time around, we want to make sure every monster is getting kind of their equal time in the spotlight. 20 is a nice round number that works out for a lot of stuff that we do in Pathfinder if you pay attention. I mean, we have 20 core deities. D20 works out really well. By the end of the year, we'll have 20 classes, so that's kind of fun. And it just worked out that if everyone has the same amount of pages, it kind of works out to, oh, that fills out the book and gives us, you know, the little intro and the outros. But everyone gets a nice even number of pages for that. So that is part of the reason for that is we want to give a kind of dedicated rules section. Those rules include the stat block, so you'll see the stat block plus additional rules that can vary from variant abilities for monsters you might already know pretty well to like lower level versions or kind of miniony types that you can use to, like, oh, this monster's too high level for my campaign at the moment, but you know, here's this monster that's 6 levels lower that I can use to kind of build up towards that if they're going to be my main antagonist. To, you know, new items and options that players can pick up after defeating these creatures or in anticipation to fight these creatures. So there's those kind of dedicated sections. And then much like Legends, we want to give a view of these creatures from in Galarian in places where it makes sense. So there are in-world stories and journals and treatises and stuff like that, that talk about these creatures, but also then at the end they kind of shift into like, all right, if you're going to use this creature in your campaign, how are you going to do that? Specifically, we're going with like we're shooting like at a low level, mid level, high level campaign approach to see how they can factor in. Sometimes, you know, these creatures are too high level, and we'll say, okay, at low levels, you might be dealing with, you know, cultist that's trying to bring the Sandpoint Devil about or something like that as an example. And then mid level, all right, you're at high enough level to deal with that. And in high levels, like, okay, now you might have to deal with the repercussions of having dealt with the Sandpoint Devil, and maybe there's some other mystery involved that kind of ties into the Sandpoint Devil that, you know, is it related to demonic forces or stuff like that? These are all just examples I'm making up off the top of my head right now.
Yeah.
But you know, so you can kind of use those as you want. They might not necessarily be the centerpiece of your campaign at any given level, but I think GMs would appreciate, like, well, here's 20 monsters when my characters are 15th level. Does that mean I can only use, like, you know, the last 5 high level ones? No, you know, here's other ways that you can bring in the lower level ones and maybe build up onto them or supplement existing stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think my personal favorite monster of myth, and this is probably just because of a little bit of nostalgia thrown in there, is Black Maga, who makes an appearance in a very early adventure path.
Yeah.
Just curious. I understand, of course, if you're not allowed to say.
Oh,
but
I mean, who's gonna stop me?
I'm not.
Black Maga isn't here because there's a lot of cool creatures that showed up in APs are kind of assumed to have been defeated by heroes in those APs. So we tend to touch on stuff that is maybe AP adjacent in terms of, like, oh, we were adventuring.
The Sandpoint Devil, yeah.
Yeah, Sandpoint Devil, but didn't necessarily fight it in that adventure path or any specific adventure, because then we know for sure that, like, at the very least, it's a safe bet that it exists in other people's campaigns at that point. Like, we know for sure if you've played every adventure path somehow, unless you've added in extra stuff, the baseline knows that they still exist somewhere for you to use in your games. And if you don't, that's fine. I mean, we can't expect every game to be able to use every monster, but we're kind of some of the baseline assumptions of what is or isn't around. So unfortunately, Black Maga in by nature showing up in an AP and having the spotlight thus is disqualified.
I will point out there was a side blurb in there that did say that there were other related creatures, but
sure.
We'll wait.
But none of them are the Black Maga.
Yeah, we'll save that for the inevitable sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from the chat, Elf Tiro, I'm hopefully saying that right, says, "Is there some yokai kind of monster?"
I don't think there's anything that is specifically a yokai, nothing pulling on from Japanese myth, but I think there is some stuff in there that I feel like will scratch a similar itch. It's not necessarily a yokai, but it is kind of a mysterious, Asian inspired, I think specifically Korean inspired monster that can kind of be that weird, mysterious kind of thing in there. And it's brand new, so you don't even know what it is. You can't even be like, I ran over to the Dragon Empires book and figured out what it was. Nope, it's brand new. We got a bunch of brand new entries in here. So
Ooh, nice.
Just to throw people off the scent.
Nice.
Awesome.
I'm told I said it good. Excellent.
Oh, there you go.
Jess asks, what's the coolest entry in this book?
That kind of ties into one of my questions, which I imagine be the answer is, did you write for this book also?
I did write for this book. And
That's the coolest one, clearly.
I'm not going to say mine is the coolest one because one...
little self-serving.
Yeah, that. But also, like, I honestly think there's a lot of really cool monsters in here. And I think the coolest entry in here is probably, I think we teased this actually in the Ruby Phoenix panel, is the Kaiju entry. Which,
oh man,
Kaiju are not things that you can really fight in person. Like, sure, you might be 20th level, the greatest heroes in all the world, but this, King Megara's still going to stomp on you, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
So what we do is we give you some kind of guidelines, really, to work with. How do I bring them into the game? They're forces of nature. They're statted up as hazards. They're high-level hazards that kind of do stuff. Like, occasionally, like, the earth rumbles and everyone, can potentially trip and fall and take a bunch of damage, or get, the earth is rended and an earthquake happens and stuff like that as King Megara steps around. So we give you those. And then a bunch of details on existing kaiju that you can then be like, oh, cool, I like this one. I'm going to take these existing mechanics and kind of just tweak them a bit to be like, yeah, Megara normally does like a fire breath. This one does acid breath. Cool, I use that stat and kind of work it in whatever way you want. If and when there's a chance that you can fight kaiju directly, I don't know. But at the very least, this book only lets you kind of get close and still deal with a lot of big problems that they bring.
All right. Well, I look forward to guns and gears and the inevitable giant clockwork mech suit for fighting kaijus.
Yes, there you go. I was going to say, we're going to need some new...
That's a thing.
I mean,
we're going to need a bigger gun.
Hop over to Starfinder and grab mechs pretty soon and time travel them back into the Galarian. Great. That'll work out fine.
Very short tangent here, but I believe one of my favorite worlds that I don't think that there's ever been a lot developed on it is the world of kaijus and mechs, where everyone lives in underground cities with crazy glowing orbs and all the rest of that. I can't remember what the name of that place is.
I was going to say, I've completely missed this.
I think there is a Pathfinder Society scenario that gets you doing some of that stuff. Or sorry, Starfinder Society scenario, excuse me. That gets you at least doing stuff with big creatures like that. So look into that. I'm sure someone else can tell you exactly which one it is. But I know that's definitely stuff that is pretty popular among some of the people at work. So definitely
look
see more of that
forward to it.
Moving forward. Yeah.
All right. So, and this might be an out there question, but are we going to see like maps and encounters included at all in this? Things like the lair of one of these legendary creatures, or...
That's the thing we actually considered when we were putting this book together. We're like, we could include a map with each entry and tell you where to go and like their horde and here's all the hazards that you have to deal with. But we ended up not going with that, partially because
20 maps is pretty expensive.
20 maps, yeah. And some of our writers for the Lost Omens line, this would be their first time writing kind of adventure encounter material. And that might not necessarily be fair to people who weren't expecting to do that with Lost Omens writing. But also, we didn't want to paint ourselves into a corner where we said, all right, here is Fafnir's lair now, and then if he ever shows up in adventure, like, does that meet the needs of the adventure at some other point? That's kind of a thing we did with Legends, where we hedged our bets a bit, like not giving you exact levels for NPCs. We feel more comfortable doing that with monsters, because they're kind of the main thing that you fight in this game. And a lot of them, because they're coming back, they already had 20 stats, so we had information we could grab. But
Mhm.
but that's one thing where we wanted to kind of leave, like, if we want maybe for Fafnir to like have relocated for some story reason to a different layer, then we
Yeah.
want to have that available. We do describe what to expect there, and give a bunch of kind of ideas for, like, Fafnir has a bunch of dead warriors who attempted to meet with him, littered about at the entrance of his layer, and there's ghosts and stuff that rise from that. So that gives GMs the inspiration where they can decide, oh well, I can use that and add ghosts and stuff if I want to use them in my game, but not necessarily kind of lock you into, like, even in your own home games, to something that you may not need to use in that particular way.
Hmm. All right. Uh, I guess my last question is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume, somewhat like with Legends, that there are some player options in here as well. Are you willing to tease any of those?
Yeah. I think I'll go with Fafnir again. He's the father of all Linorms, or so he
Mhm.
claims. And of course, there's lots of weapons designed to take down dragons, which includes Linorms under that umbrella. And Fafnir has been around for so long that he's probably seen 1,000 different warriors come in with 1,000 different dragon slaying swords, and
Mhm.
well, some of them are actually legit. Like, these could be very dangerous. Luckily, he killed whoever came in with them, and now they're part of his horde. So I think there's a very cool magical sword. I think it's actually artifact level from what I recall.
Mm.
Um,
Ooh.
yes, because I remember adding an entry for explaining how to destroy it. That was pretty interesting. So that's one of the examples of stuff that you can find. So I think there's other stuff, like, I recall off the top of my head, you can learn some snares from certain areas, and claim weapons from creatures that are using, like, some of the creatures themselves have weapons. You slay them, now you take their weapon, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So there's stuff like that you can look forward to. A lot of spoils of slaying monsters that you would expect with that kind of stuff.
So I've been playing a
Awesome.
lot of Monster Hunter recently. Will we be able to craft weapons from their bodies?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to be able to do that. I have had like a seed in my head for years about, like, how do I do that in Pathfinder, and now Pathfinder Second Edition, and I came to realize that that book would be massive to have to figure out all those rules and then explain, like, all right, if you're looking through the bestiary, green dragon has this many bones, this many claws, this many scales, and all that. Like, it'd be a nightmare to put together, but if someone did it, it'd be super duper cool. So I don't know if Paizo is going to do it anytime soon, but I'm sure someone out there will finally take the time to get that all sorted out.
Awesome.
In a day, somebody will put it out on a was it Drive Through RPG?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put some rules together.
While you were talking, actually, I came up with one last question to ask
Mm-hmm.
pertaining towards this book, which is, I'm going to assume that there are a few sections in here on how to take these legendary monsters of myth and make them into more of the less of the target of the quest and more of the quest giver. I'm assuming that there are a few of these monsters that work
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah. Not all the creatures are here to be like, come and kill me, adventurers, right? There are definitely some that are mythical for different reasons.
Hmm.
Um, I can think of like two or three off the top of my head that are just like, oh yeah, these are basically NPCs that happen to have built up a reputation over time. I mean, just because you're a monster doesn't mean you're unintelligent and,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, Fafnir, he's a super duper smart dragon. He could be a quest giver if you're brave enough to go talk to him. So there are definitely ones that are there to be impetus for a different adventure, or kind of put you onto that track. It maybe even be your mentor and stuff like that if you're lucky.
I look forward to Fafnir's quest of here's this dragon killing sword, and here's how you destroy it. It's under its artifact entry. Go.
Yeah.
So, oh, do we have another question from chat?
We do have another question from chat. Spry Tom asks, are there going to be any more godly spawn, for example, of Rovagug, showcased?
If you look back at Legacy of Fire, which featured a lot of,
Personal favorite.
yes,
Yep.
as actually the
Big
first
fan.
AP I ever ran.
It was the
First
first
one
one
I
I
ever
ran for
played
them.
in.
Yeah.
There's an entry in the final book that talks about the Spot of Rovagug, and it talks about the Tarask and Zotani and all the other ones there. Like there's a bunch of like main, I think there's like 5 or 6 main ones.
Big names,
and,
yeah.
And if you look through the history of 1E, you'll see that all of those got statted up except for one. And I noticed that as I was putting this book together, it's like, well, we got to have a Spawn of Rovagug. Which one do we do? You know, I'll just grab one of the ones, and then I realized, oh, here's this one that's missing. Let's do that one. So someone takes the time to research and figure out which one that is. You'll know what to expect in Monsters of Myth with that.
So Luis also gives out quests, is what
Yes.
I'm hearing.
Yes.
I look forward to the grand hunt that the Pathfolk will.
I'm
will
sure
begin.
it'll be figured out in the next 20 minutes. It's fun to act like, I've set you off on this grand scavenger hunt.
So now, outside of being a developer for the Lost Omens lines, you are also a writer for
Yes.
Pathfinder generally. So would you be willing to talk about a couple of other things, non-Lost Omens related products coming up?
Okay, sure. I'm saying I have written for Lost Omens. I know a lot about that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I guess we can talk about something else.
So there are the three rule books that have been announced for PF2 for the upcoming year, which are the Secrets of Magic, which I believe is coming out in August, Guns and Gears in October, and the newly announced Book of the Dead, which will be coming out next year. Have you contributed to any of these books?
Whether or not I have contributed officially hasn't been announced, but I will say that I try very hard to get into the credits for every rule book that we put out. Haven't missed one yet, so use that as you will. I sure wish that if I were someone who'd written for a book like that, some of the stuff came up during Paizocon, so I could be like, look, I wrote that. But you know.
So
that those aren't my books to spoil. I'm happy to spoil Lost Omen stuff left and right, but like anything outside of those, it's really up to those teams to do so.
That's fair. I respect that. I did have a question. It's more of it's not a spoiler question. So we know that there's the Inventor, the Gunslinger, and the Magus coming out. And I'm going to assume that you know a great deal more about those than necessarily we as outsiders to Paizo do. Which one are you the most excited to make a character of?
Of the 4 classes, Magus, Summoner, Inventor, Gunslinger, I think it would be
the Summoner.
Inventor. The moment. I mean, it just looked like the most fun right out of the gate based on the playtest material and stuff. And putting on my developer hat again. Yeah, it looks cool. All right. I can't say much more than that.
All right, we won't press you on that. So I think I speak for everyone when new rule options and new rule books come out. I think everyone is excited for those. I know Heather's over the moon for the Summoner because that is her favorite one.
That is her favorite. I'm really looking forward to the Inventor. Not because I've ever played anything similar, but just because it's so in my wheelhouse as being a tech guy, of having a tech focused class.
And as Texans, I think Gunslinger is a mandatory exciting thing.
Oh yes, definitely.
So I guess let's dive into adventures then.
Sure.
Unless anyone has any questions pertaining towards the Pathfinder rule books, but I don't know if there are any. They're more likely not be asking you for things that you can really not talk about or discuss in this context.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about APG and Bestiary 3 and stuff.
That's true.
Let's see. Jess asks, so how's the next Geb adventure coming along, which you probably know nothing about, so...
if there's such an adventure, I know nothing about it. So last I heard, there's no problems because I don't know anything about such an adventure.
No news.
They're coming along great.
11
years in the making.
Yep.
Izikaru asks, I'm not sure when this came up. It just says, spoil the new Ancestry and Grand Bazaar.
So a while back, Paizo Friday last month, or 2 months ago now, because it's June, back in April, I mentioned that, yes, the Grand Bazaar, you can find a lot of cool stuff there. There's so much cool stuff that you can even find archetypes and a new ancestry. And that's all I'm telling people. I think I've clarified specifically that It's something you've never ever seen as playable in Paizo's history, which includes Starfinder and Pathfinder.
Ooh.
But other than that, I'm keeping quiet on this one. It's not the Ancestry Guide. There's a lot of cool items I can spoil, but I'm not going to spoil anything else for this Ancestry. You'll just have to see it when it comes out. I like to compare it to, you buy those mystery loot boxes in the mail that come in every month. You know that there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming in Grand Bazaar, and one of these is just going to be a secret thing. You don't know what it is.
All right. For now, I'm just going to be assuming Katapeshi Packmasters.
That would be something new.
That would be pretty great.
But if
I
you
feel
know
like that's too Starfinder.
If you know the lore,
yeah,
the Packmasters are witch weirds.
Yeah,
which are playable in Starfinder.
Yeah,
yeah.
So shut that down.
It's so great though. Come on. Let's bring the forearm mechanics in full.
Oh goodness.
So I guess let's dive into adventures, because that is something that you have your name all over right now.
Yes.
So
before you jump into that, Jess is going mad. She's guessed sphinxes and mimics. Mimics are weird.
Those are technically guesses.
Yes, they are technically guesses. I just thought they were funny guesses, so she gets bonus points for them being funny.
I've been pushing for a while for centaurs, so I'm going to keep holding out for those. So on the adventure side, however, there are 3 adventure paths that are coming up, 2 of which we've known about for a bit, one which is a new arrival. But Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, of course, is...
Yes.
I'm going to say current. It is the current adventure path.
Yeah.
It has suffered the most, I feel like, from the shipping delays, as I believe all 3 books, the entirety of the adventure path, are scheduled now to drop on the same day.
Yeah, they're all...
Wait, all 3 books come out the same day?
Yeah, they're all bundled together. You can get the whole 3-part AP all at once. So if you're a really fast reader, you can have it and be prepped and ready to go for that weekend for the entire AP and not be thrown off by anything your players do.
Awesome. I'm excited for that.
I was going to say, that's actually kind of exciting, and just being like, sometimes it's like, I don't know if I really want to play this. I don't know how like book 3 and 4 are going to go. Maybe I have some hesitation. It's just like, boom, there's a whole thing.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this AP. I'm wearing a Street Fighter related shirt. It's Chun-Li.
Nice.
With like her move list.
Her moveset,
yeah.
Very nice.
Thinking about trying to put more Ruby Phoenix vibes out into the world.
Yep. And you, of course, wrote the first book of this, which is Despair on Danger Island.
Correct.
I imagine we talked a little bit about this off air, but I imagine that there's a certain degree of frustration waiting for this book to come out, as you were supposed to be able to talk about this a little bit more openly, I think 2 months ago.
Yes, I was. I think Patrick, the developer for this AP, is probably not going to complain too much if I talk about it now. They've talked about it a bit on streams for Paizo Live and Paizocon. If he does get upset, I can just walk over to his place. He lives a few blocks from me, and give him an apology cake or something. Whatever. He's probably not going to worry too much. So I want to talk about this a little bit more. Despair on Danger Island. The fun part is starting everyone at 11th level. Means I can kind of ignore a lot of assumptions about the first adventure of an AP. I can throw more stuff at you and be like, you can live through this, right? I'm sure you can.
Well, they're supposed to be heroes if they're competing in this tournament. So
and that also tied in well with the themes of the Ruby Phoenix tournament in the setting. Like, it's supposed to be grand heroes. I think if you started at first level, it would kind of really stretch or even completely break your suspension of disbelief here, because like first level heroes fighting against the most powerful warriors in the world, that doesn't make any sense. Also, I think it'd be tough to like sit through 6 adventures worth of an AP or of a tournament
fighting
arc.
tournament.
But I think it sits really well with the 3-part AP style here. So I think people will really enjoy both the format change and the fact that it means that we get to start at a higher level and tell a different type of story than you're used to.
Yeah, from our chat, Analog Caveman says, one of the reasons I'm most excited for Fist of the Ruby Phoenix is breaking out characters with nuts backstories from the get-go.
Yes, and we definitely encourage that. If you checked out the player's guide, there's a whole like random team generator that you can use to inspire yourself for what do I want to do, and it gives you different goofy ideas like, oh, all of our team coordinates in the same colors because that's the kind of team we are, or stuff like that.
It's all about the uniform.
Exactly.
Funny enough, I made a note to myself because we talked about this I think it's like 6 months ago now, the last time that we did an interview with you. And I brought up how it sounded a lot like you were kind of taking a player unknown battleground, or that kind of approach where it's like everyone is dropped on an island. So I want to know, counting all the other NPCs, do they number with the PCs a total of 100?
Oh my gosh!
So that we can have a death match until there's only.
I think it goes way past 100.
Okay, that answers my question of are they all statted out?
So one thing I did, because so it's a big sandbox. I really like Sandbox Adventures, and this is the sandboxiest of any adventure I've ever dealt with. I have like little sandboxes that I like to throw in for like, oh, here's this whole chapter that is in a dungeon. Dungeons are their own little sandboxes, but this entire thing is a sandbox. You're thrown on the titular Danger Island, and you spend your first day kind of clearing out your base to, so you have a spot to sleep in. But then after that, it's like, here's the island, have fun. To the point where like every hex has a thing that you can do. It's a big hex crawl. But the hex crawls don't assume that you start at a particular spot and go through a particular route. If you ever played Kingmaker, you start off at the trading post, and then it's just kind of assume you work out from there. But because you're 11th level, it's like they can probably get around the island super quick and do whatever the heck they want. So let's lean into that. Actually, even added in like a waypoint system, like a quick travel system. There's like 5 big waypoints throughout the island that you can kind of walk in, use them to teleport yourself to another one. Anywhere else on the island.
Pre-set up teleportation circles.
And those are active from the moment you land on the island. So you can choose to be like, all right, we started here, find the nearest one, and go to the complete opposite of the end of the island and adventure from there if you want. And the adventure assumes that you kind of go wherever. It adds events and stuff that's like wherever they are, this event happens, because it's a big enough island that you can have events kind of anywhere. And there's a lot of different maps that kind of represent the different geographies that you can show up in. So there's like a forest themed map, there's like a river themed map, there's one up in the mountains and stuff. So wherever you are, there's usually a map ready to go for whatever you need, for be it a fight or something else. But it's got a lot going on. I feel like I've lost track of where this question started. Yeah, it's
Sandbox is fun.
Sandboxes are fun. It's the biggest sandbox ever. And awesome. I think it's going to lead to a lot of interesting war stories when people are done with it, where they can say, we did this, well, we did that, and like, oh, we didn't even know you could find that, because there is not enough time probably to do everything on the island. I threw in, I think, like 4 or 5 different like big collectathon side quests in the adventure to encourage you to explore and like want to find other stuff. One of the fun ones that I'm really proud of is there's a bunch of different shrines to different lost and forgotten gods. And if you've managed to go to each one and revere each god, that's cool that each of those gets you kind of your own little XP reward and other little rewards. But that's also a big side quest that you could complete, that if you manage to do all of them on the island before you leave Danger Island, then you get a really big reward as part of that.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that, because like I know there's some people that just like they don't ever really go to do side quests, and like, because it doesn't ever feel like it's necessarily worth it, or they're on a time crunch and they don't have time. And it's nice to see like those things kind of branching out there that can give you some stuff to do while you're wandering around, that have like these huge bonuses. That's very cool.
Yeah, I also gave you a time crunch, so I gave you too many side quests and too little of a time crunch, so it kind of encourages you to kind of decide on what you want to do or don't want to do and prioritize stuff, and then maybe really get upset when you're the kind of player that wants to get all of that done.
I was gonna say that sounds like Rick. You're the completionist of the group, so
I just make sure that if I were playing, the party would never rest.
Oh god.
Sleeping just wastes time that we could be stopping people.
Yeah, but I mean, then you got to deal with fatigue and all that stuff. And
I know.
Yeah.
No one rests until you collapse from exhaustion.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the chat, Elf Turo asks, "Is the first book could be repeatable, basically, in that case?
Yeah,
because
in
it is
a
open
way,
enough."
it definitely could be. I could see it. It is, I feel, a very great adventure to kind of pop out Danger Island and just put into whatever campaign you need because of its big open-ended nature. Even if you're not doing a fighting tournament, I think you could pop out all the different or pluck out all the different competitors and then still have a really cool island and that you could do a whole lot of. I was really inspired by the first adventure of Serpent Skull, Souls for Smuggler Shiv, where you're on a big island and just gotta. That's it. That's the only place you are in. And obviously there's some interior locations, some little dungeons and stuff, but for the most part, it's a cool big place you can explore. So I wanted to do Smuggler Shiv for a higher level group that you can pluck out and use for whatever you want. But yeah, if you played through this with 2 or 3 different groups, you could probably see 3 completely different playthroughs of that. And I think that's going to also make people who record this and make podcasts and stuff out of it. It makes it really interesting because you can get a different story each time with every listen through on that.
Absolutely. And if the party should happen to TPK, it'd be very easy to start at the beginning of the adventure path again and not repeat content.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Just, oh, well, they weren't the champions, but this time, these guys. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one's more of a joking question is, Danger Island has such an amazing Saturday morning cartoon feel to it. Please tell me that there's a volcano on Danger Island.
There is definitely a mountain at the center that you have to climb to at the very end to kind of claim your spot in the tournament. I don't think it's a volcano. I think I considered making it a volcano, but then I just ran out of space to add what happens when you have to deal with a volcano. But it's definitely a mountain you have to climb at the end. So that's fun. There's so much different terrain, so it'll be probably pretty easy to convert anything into a volcano in there if you needed it.
I was gonna say you could convert it to a volcano, or you could put a skull on the side of it. Either way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not both?
Why not both? Yeah, both. My other question for it was going to be, from what I've gathered, many people who are not making new characters will probably be taking their characters from the previous 3-book arc of Abomination Vault and rolling them into this. So do you have any suggestions on how to tie those in together?
So
other than just they're awesome.
They're awesome. The Ruby Phoenix tournament assumes that Hao Jin herself, because now that she's back, Hao Jin herself kind of handpicked the selection that ends up on Danger Island. She doesn't pick the proper competitors for the tournament, but she picks everyone for the qualifying round, or at the very least has a big hand in picking them. So there's not a specific you finished Abomination Vaults, and in the concluding the adventure it says if your players are going to be in Ruby Phoenix, add in this little thing to tie that together.
A letter shows up on their door.
Yeah, but it's very easy to say, oh, you are near Absalom because you're an Otari in Abomination Vaults. Word of your tales, your renown could get to Absalom, and then from there it can get to anywhere in the world. It'd be very easy for Hao Jin to take notice of heroes who are now at about 11th level, who have done great things. Maybe she sees them as plucky underdogs. Oh, no one's ever heard of these people, but I heard that they did cool stuff. They might at the very least be interesting to see if they get anywhere. Let's bring them onto the island. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. You just effectively get the letter that says, yeah, hey, you're in Smash Brothers.
The new challenger appears.
Based on your reputation that came before it. And the other thing I'd recommend is looking at the player's guide, both as a GM and as a player, to see like there are example backgrounds about, oh, maybe there's a little bit of downtime between Abomination Vaults and Fists of the Ruby Phoenix, where we maybe play out a thing that kind of leads into that. You know, if you're someone who is aspiring to be in the tournament, maybe you hear about it after Abomination Vaults, and you spend a session or two kind of training towards that and trying to work your way into claiming a spot in the tournament.
Awesome.
That is cool. Question from the chat. I'm going back a little bit in the chat, but Analog Caveman asks, compared to your work in Age of Ashes, how much easier is it to work on the new AP volumes? It sounds actually harder.
Oh boy,
for how you put that together.
If I weren't doing the things I was doing with these adventures, like the specific, like, I don't want to call them gimmicks, but very specific features and extra cool stuff that I'm doing with it, I think it would be easier. When I was writing Age of Ashes, two things are going on. One, the rule set wasn't done yet, so I had to work.
So that's easier.
Yeah, work with assumptions that maybe changed as time went on, but because I was at Paizo, I could always peek at the rule book as it was getting put together. But also, I had one bestiary worth of monsters to work with, and it turns out a lot of the high level monsters are just dragons, and I can't just throw 15 different types of dragons at people.
A flight of
one,
worms.
It won't make sense, and two, it would get boring. But now, when I was putting the Danger Island adventure together, I had the in progress bestiary 3. So I had all 3 bestiaries to work with. I had troop rules to work with to make kind of any creature I wanted, kind of level them up into a troop that can still be challenging.
Yeah.
And suddenly a bunch of the high level monsters, the percentage of dragons had been diminished because, there's a lot of different stuff now that I could pull from. And also knew the rules a bit better. I felt more comfortable with just like coming up with just NPCs that you kind of see in there that aren't, the unique monsters. And that's one thing to help with the sandbox nature. I kind of statted up 5 basic stat blocks that are like, oh, here's a weapon related warrior, here's a ranged one, here's like your dex one, here's your magic one, that are generic stat blocks that I say, all right, you face this team. It has 2 weapon warriors and 1 agile warrior. Great. And then I can just kind of keep referring back to those and tweak those as I needed, rather than have to stat up every teammate individually.
Yeah, that probably took up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose jumping forward by, I think, 1 month after all that comes out is the launch of Strength of Thousands.
Yes.
Which launches following that, and you are the writer of the 4th book of that series.
I do book 4, I guess.
Yep,
because
that's
technically Danger Island is a 4th in a collection of 6.
Book 4 or book 6, take your pick. Which is Secrets of the Temple City. It's a 12th level adventure. I'm sensing a bit of a pattern there. Do you prefer the 11 to 12 range? Is that the sweet spot for you? Or?
So when I was for Ruby Phoenix, we were getting that put together, and I was in the meetings about like, what could we do, blah blah blah, and I was excited at the prospect of, oh, there's going to be a big sandbox. I want to do that. I want to push my sandbox writing skills to the limit. I feel like I definitely did. And I told Patrick as we were leaving that meeting, hey, I want to write that one. It happened to be the 4th book, or 11th level, right? And then when the inklings of Strength of 1000 were getting put together, I knew Ron was looking to bring in a fair number of authors that didn't have as much AP experience on there. I told him, I know you're bringing on a lot of new people. I will offer myself as the guy who writes the most complicated, difficult adventure based on whatever parameters you think it is. Whatever you think will be the hardest to write, give that to me. Happen to be the 4th adventure.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, it turns out, hey, there's kind of a sandbox in it.
Hey.
And this sandbox is really interesting, though, in that it's not the typical sandbox that you're used to from your adventuring days. This is, I guess, an intrigue sandbox. It's not about combat. It's all about diplomacy and negotiation and stuff like that. And having,
I love those.
Yeah. The blurb for the previous adventure mentions that there's going to be a lot of negotiation and stuff. And basically, the entire first chapter is just the intrigue system. There, I sprinkle in a couple of combats here and there for people who want to, hey, I miss combat. Here it is. And I mentioned, like, hey, if you're the GM, if you want to add more combat, feel free. But the entire writing is just focused on intrigue. and there's the intrigue system and game master guide, and I feel like I put it through its paces and then some. I pushed on every boundary I could to see how far I can and move this thing, and effectively have set up kind of like this interconnected web of intrigue stat blocks and systems that, you know, you talk to this person that connects you with this thing that can help you with doing influence with this other character, and there's kind of a back and forth of meeting with different characters and figuring that all out. And that was, I think, the most difficult thing I've ever written in an adventure. But by the end of it, I thought it really showcased both what the intrigue system could do and what you could do with adventures for Pathfinder, and I guess just fantasy RPGs that weren't just it's combat. And I did try really hard for my Tyrant's Grasp adventure to make it so anything that wasn't construct or undead or stuff that you're used to destroying, right, had some way of resolving it non-violently. And this is kind of an extension of that. Like, how can I just make an entire level's worth of adventure non-violent? And we'll see how it turns out. Ron has seemed positive about it, and I hope people end up liking it. It, I think, can be a lot to try to download and understand, but if you read it through, I think hopefully it'll all make sense and lead to, again, really interesting, varied playthroughs for different groups.
I am very excited for that.
The chat is
also
as well.
Very,
that hits on like one of my favorite things is like when we get to talk our way out of the fight. Like there's just something satisfying about that on a totally different level than combat.
It reminds me a little bit of we'd gone through the first half of book 3 of Mummy's Mask, which is the Tefu arc in Mummy's Mask, for those of us that for people that have gone through that, which is a lot of intrigue inside of this Nethian city. And so a city intrigue always fills me with excitement. And your mentioning of Tyrant's Grasp is, of course, we're all very excited. I'm possibly even more excited now to inevitably get through book 5.
Jess
Halfway
is freaking out in the chat. Yes, she's very excited. She's like, oh, nonviolent? Yes.
Yeah, if you wanted to, you could go through that adventure and do a pacifist playthrough where all you do is destroy constructs and undead and nothing that is a living creature.
Awesome.
Might be a challenge for our group. I'm not sure if we're totally into that based on our current playstyle, but we could give it a try. We have some room to grow characters into potentially nonviolent by book 5.
So, small anecdote here. I am very much looking forward to this adventure. 2, I've always pronounced it Mzali. Is that?
I've been saying Mazzali, so
Mazzali? Okay.
Yeah.
I've always found Mazzali very interesting, and recently took another look at Walkina, who is the the ruler. When I did one of our recent share lore episodes talking about various mummies of the Pathfinder setting and mummification processes and comparing them to real world examples. So I did kind of a deep dive, and both that city and that particular character are very interesting, and I'm looking forward to having apparently a non-violent interaction with them.
That's part of the reason why you want to be non-violent. If you're going into Mazzali and you have a living god just that's ruling over the city and can see you at any time, any attempts at violence are probably going to lead to bad results. Oh, let's go face this living god. No big deal.
Having read about him, no.
No.
And I guess I should temper expectations. I feel like a lot of people are seeing this, seeing that Walkena was CR 16 in first edition, and being like, oh, by the time you finish this adventure, you'd probably be high enough level to face Walkena. That's not what this adventure is about. You're not here to liberate Mazzali. You're here to make some gradual changes, and I think the adventure goes into a bit of that to explain like why this is the case. And also, who knows? Walkena's been around for a while. He might have gotten stronger since first edition. So, do you really want to question that? We haven't given him stat block in 2E, so
yeah, I mean, he did have 10 years to buff up. So
yeah, then maybe that's for a reason, because we want people who are like, oh yeah, Walkena, we're 60th level, we can take him now. Are you sure? You sure?
Are you sure? And would he just be standing there alone, or would you have to fight an
Oh,
entire
I mean, he
palace
has
full of people?
an entire city, to defend him.
Yeah. Would the city
Evil as
even
he
want to be
is.
liberated?
Yeah, a lot of the people still love Volcana, and are at the very least very loyal to Volcana. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I've got no further questions there. I just wanted to make that statement because I'm very excited, and I've always loved the lore, particularly of that city and of that character.
I feel like by the end of it, people will find Mazzali to be a much more interesting place, both because you've explored it, but like, just seeing how things turn out by the end, I think will lead to like, oh man, what's going to happen next time we come back to Mazzali? Because if we show up and do all this cool stuff, and this all just came about because we talked to a lot of people, what's going to happen if we actually go in and actually have weapons drawn?
Yep. So that does lead us to the newest announced adventure path, which I believe is the quest for the Frozen Flame.
Yes.
Now, I know not much is out about this, other than the fact that it's another 3-part series.
Yep.
It is set in the realm of the Mammoth Lords and follows the PCs as they grow a community, involving something with maybe a magical artifact is what I've been able to ascertain pertaining towards it. So I guess first question is, are you writing any part of this adventure path?
I am not contributing to that, so I'm actually keeping myself as spoiler free as I can, just because it's like, well, I have the luxury of getting to see a lot of stuff early, but that also means I end up knowing a lot of stuff in advance. I wasn't part of any meetings that helped put this together or anything, so it's actually kind of a fun specific area where it's like, oh, for once I don't know what's happening. I know like the theme, which now we all know the theme, so like that's about it. I know Ron has mentioned to me, I think we mentioned that he's an author for that he wrote a particular encounter and he had some questions about it, and I helped him clear that up. So I know one encounter and that's about it. So that could end up changing or be gone by the time I end up seeing the book anyway. So like effectively I'm going in fresh just like everyone else, and that's kind of fun. I don't get that all the time.
I was gonna say that'd be good for if you're gonna play in it, like, because I feel like the worst part about being like a writer for Paizo is knowing how the adventure goes so that you can't play it. Just be cheating.
I've been trying to keep myself spoiler free for Strange Aeons for a long time, and I'm finally playing through it with Jason Keeley and a few other coworkers. But there was a point in the lead up to the Lost Omens World Guide where it's like, well, we got to decide what happens with the resolution of every AP. I didn't know anything about it, and I was concerned, oh, I'm about to find out what happens. And I was just kind of told, oh, this doesn't really affect much going on, so we can just kind of skip that. Oh, okay.
It's a little beyond the scope of the Inner Sea.
I feel like I'm gathering that by book 3 now.
Yep. And this is going to be a 1 through 10, correct? It's
yeah,
going to be
we mentioned it's 1 through 10, and
nice.
I'm gonna guess that the next one after that is probably gonna start off at 11th level. Who knows?
Okay. And then I guess my last question for this is, are there any chances that we're going to be getting something for the realm of Mammoth Lords as far as the Lost Omens line's concerned?
Oh boy. Currently of announced books, I don't think much touches on Realm of the Mammoth Lords. I think if we were to go back there, it would more likely be part of a Saga Lands book. So we'd see Berisia and Land of the Lindorm Kings and all the other stuff there. Anything that's announced, probably not, but never say never. I definitely want to get back to the Saga Lands at some point, partially because I've taken a liking to the Lands of the Lindorm Kings as of late, so I want to see what we can do with that.
Hence waiting for the adventure path.
And then as a byproduct of stuff I want to do, it's like, oh, I guess we can touch on Mammoth Lord stuff too.
All right. Any questions from our chat pertaining towards the this upcoming adventure path? I just see a lot of general excitement.
Yeah, lots and lots of general excitement. I will ask this question just because I've seeing the next 3 adventure paths are non-traditional, like high fantasy kind of locales. Is that like a pattern you think is going to continue, or is there possibly a return to like a more traditional, like medieval European kind of setting coming around.
I think you can definitely expect to get back to the traditional RPG stuff that you're used to seeing, but maybe not necessarily at the same rate that you're used to seeing it in first edition. We ended up doing a lot of kind of traditional, not necessarily. It was never traditional from the get go, right? Rise of the Rune Lords even isn't traditional. Closest I think would be traditional is Kingmaker, but like even then that goes into weird places. But the closest thing to the traditional RPG experience that you're used to, we touched on that a lot in first edition, and not for nothing, but I think 2E is fertile for opportunities to do more unique, interesting, different out there stuff. So I think it'll happen. I just don't think it'll be like, oh, back in first edition we did one weird one and then a standard one and then weird and standard. I think it won't have any kind of pattern like that.
Yeah, I say that as somebody who is a massive fan of all the weird ones. All my favorite adventure paths are the ones that are non-traditional. So, but I know that there's probably some people who are like, man, I do kind of miss like just a straightforward knights and evil necromancers kind of an adventure.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we have the modules and Pathfinder Society means we can still go back to that and not lose out on that for people who want it. I think Malevolence, I mean, it's a traditional haunted house. That's classic fantasy horror stuff. The Night of the Great Death is Galt, and that's more in the line of traditional European medieval stuff. Not exactly, but it's closer to that than say Strength of Thousands is, right? So there are definitely opportunities for people to still get that itch scratched if they want, without like only focusing on that stuff. We have a very diverse setting. We want to make diverse adventures, and at the very least, you can always go back to first edition, nab something like Rise of the Rune Lords, and play that, or wait for Kingmaker to come out next year and play that. So there's still lots of opportunities in the future.
All right.
Okay,
well,
cool, man.
We asked for an hour and a half of your time. You've given us the hour and a half of time. Would you be willing to stick around a little bit for some of
I
these
don't mind
questions?
sticking out. Yeah, it's fun to do this. If we were doing this every other week, maybe I couldn't spare as much. But like, 6 months, every 6 months, I can do this.
Hey, you just told me you're riding off the high from Paizocon, so
yeah,
that's why we do these after Paizocon. We have to strike while the iron's hot.
Yes,
everyone's still excited.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Jess should have just been on this so that she could have asked all these questions because she has all the questions.
Offered her.
I know. I literally offered her. But she said, random. Are we ever getting more druid orders? Maybe with the Mwangi expanse things?
So I mentioned earlier I don't spoil stuff outside of my own rules or my own book line, but because we did mention this at Paizocon, I just get to repeat what's already been spoiled in that the druid orders are expanding in Secrets of Magic. I feel bad because I think I mentioned to Jess, she asked once like, hey, are there going to be more druid orders in APG? And I said, or in the future, and I said, I don't know, maybe in APG. I think in a way that maybe suggested like, oh, I know, they're just look forward to APG. I was like, I don't know, they might be in APG. I actually don't know.
Non-committal.
I actually don't know, but this time we have confirmed. I have seen it, and we actually teased a bit of that in the Lost Omens line. I think people have noticed, and we can put 2 and 2 together here. The Oread Versatile Heritage, the Earth plane related Versatile Heritage mentions that sometimes there are druids who their classes that they tend to be druids, and a lot of them take the Stone Order for druids. And people are like, what's the Stone Order? What is this thing? We never heard of it. Hey, I did mention Secrets of Magic is having new orders. So
there you go.
There you go. Here's some connections.
I'm expecting a whole Captain Planet theme of Earth, Fire, Wind, Water.
I think you could definitely,
dude,
probably do that with druids pretty easily.
I was gonna say Strength of Thousands, all druid party with the different orders of like the elements and stuff. That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Strength of 1,000, everyone plays a summoner, but all of you summon the one thing.
You all summon Captain Planet. Oh man,
I
I
look
could
forward
see a
to that eventual
homebrew.
archetype.
I could see somebody homebrewing a Captain Planet and the Planeteers
Well,
like
you would
group.
need the heart order first before you can pull that
It's
off,
true.
right?
It's true. Mostly it was talking to animals, so I think animal will work fine for that. But we've got a lot of questions to go through here, so I suppose let's
Sure.
jump in. First off, from our Patreon, Max writes in a previous interview with Find the Path folks, you mentioned that hobgoblins were your favorite race, although I'm sure this kind of answers, or this kind of answer changes a lot. In celebration of the humble hobgoblin, can you give us an update on how things are going for them politically? Oprak doing well, or non-Oprak hobgoblins better received now that they have a homeland of sorts?
Yeah, so I very much like the hobgoblins, partially because the updates they got in the ancestry guide made them so much cooler. They
Mhm.
became not just like, oh, we're big militaristic ancestry, but
Goblins,
also
yeah.
they have this weird like connection to healing magic and stuff based on the origins of their creation, which is like not a thing anyone I'm sure ever expected hobgoblins to have, but it was fun to add in there. We that entry I think is the most up to date info on OPRAC about what's going on, but I think as time moves forward, you'll see OPRAC is getting more and more accepted. I think you can probably expect other militaristic styled groups to probably get along with them a bit more. They've taken on a lot of monstrous ancestries in OPRAC, so they brought in orcs and ogres and stuff like that to live among them. So there's probably some kind of connection with the orcs in the Hold of Buxton along with OPRAC, so they've probably got some allyship, but also unexpected things like, hey, these hobgoblins are really good at fighting. Maybe they can help out the Knights of Lastwall in clearing out the Gravelands. And they're just happy to go see another fight. And in this case, like no one's gonna get mad that they're helping fight undead, right? Everyone wants to get rid of these things. So I think that's one thing that we probably will lean into in the future, and showing like a lot of people distrusted them, but it turns out they've managed to at least find some kind of connections and allies in the inner sea.
Yeah. I suppose going into the Discord here, this one's a little bit random, but Jim asks, if you had to create a party of Grippleys to face the second level of Battletoads, the one with the hoverboards, what would it be? I feel like a Starfinder Ace pilot would be necessary.
So one would have to have an adventure to drive these things, right? So adventure, maybe.
I think there were three of them. So
I think you want a monk that focuses on like the wind feats, so you can do like the big jumps and stuff. And then I think we'll call it a ranger or a rogue, someone that ends up getting legendary perception, so you at least can see the obstacles coming with enough time to do something about it.
Yeah. So not a bad idea. I think we already had touched on this a little bit earlier on how far along the Dizzy Dwarf asked how far along is the Gebnext adventure path, and have you seen any art for it yet?
Like I said, I haven't heard any problems going on with that AP, so it must be on track. It must be doing great, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know about this AP.
They're trying to get me to slip up and be like, oh yeah, did we announce that? And then like, no, we have no if that's a thing, I don't know anything about it. Even if I did, I'd pretend I don't know anything about it.
Yep, clever dwarf.
Now I'm just imagining like Paizo has got like a giant board where they've got like a Kanban kind of setup where it's like things we have announced, things in development, things that are just ideas.
Actually, we had a big kind of email that's like, here's what we're going to talk about Paizocon, so feel free to talk about these things. Anything that comes before that, you're good. Anything after that, it don't, just assume it doesn't exist.
So Xroot writes, what region of Galarian or the Plains would you be most excited to explore more in a new book?
What is on Galarian that I think I would like to see more? I will have to put Arcadia as like we all know that. Let's find a different answer, right?
Yep.
I think I want to go to Southern Garund. We seeing the manga expanse, lots of cool stuff, but like there's an entire other half of that map that we can roll out and do cool stuff with.
There's like a catfolk nation down there.
There's
Catfolk
nation,
adventure
there's
path.
lizard folk, there's a nation full of Asimar. There's the Anati nation. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff that we keep teasing and teasing. And because it's so close, it's just past our doorstep. It's just right there. Like, why don't we just go there? Let's do it.
I 100% agree, and you just need to slide the map down a little bit.
Yeah,
it's easy.
Yeah,
and I'm just saying, if you do an AP in this Catfolk Nation, Find the Path will be there.
Yes.
Like, I'll call it now. We will end up doing that because we are cat fans.
Yeah. So we've managed to sprinkle in information. The Catfolk article in Extinction Curse, I think, hints about what could be in that Catfolk Nation and stuff like that. So there's little hints here and there. But I think we're getting less and less afraid to just like drop hints and stuff like that and be like, if throw out effectively bait and see what bites and what doesn't, and then work from that.
So all right, got a number of them here. So let's go with what are your hopes for the future of Paizo and tabletop gaming? We're going big picture here.
Oh boy, I hope we make as much money as the Marvel movies, and I can retire from just putting Arcadia together, right? Those are the big dreams.
Live off the royalties.
No, I think I'd like to just invite more people to play, right? Wangi Expanse is doing that. Adding assistive items is, Paizo's been pushing for that, but I think the current batch of developers and staff are pushing even harder and harder every day, and we're going to get pushback. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have problems along the way, but I think it's worth trying to do that and get as many people in. If you end up seeing something for Pathfinder, seeing some art for the Wangi Expanse, and saying, "Oh, that's cool. There are black elves now. I guess I'm going to check out this D&D game." Great, you're playing the hobby, right? You're in the game.
Yeah.
That's what we want. If you happen to play Pathfinder, obviously we would love that. But just being able to like expand that and bring in a lot more people to try this out. It's not for everyone, obviously, but like giving everyone a chance, the same everyone would with like, oh, I like movies. Let's try some movies. Do I like video games? Do I like whatever? Make it as open and as inviting to anyone who wants to start, especially if they don't have anyone to help them out, right? If there's not your uncle who can teach you how to play the game or whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to start it on your own, we want to make that as open for as many people as possible and make people as excited for it as they can for, whatever reason you want to play. It's because I hear this is like Skyrim. I hear, they have black elves which look like me or whatever, or just I miss playing this or whatever the case might be. We want to give you a reason to come play and give you as much stuff to excite you for that.
Yeah, that is a beautiful answer.
I think it's one we all want as well. Like,
yeah.
I think, especially as somebody who's like introduced people over the quarantine to Pathfinder and, seeing what positivity comes from the community. Yeah. Everybody just wants to spread that out as far as you can.
So many people have jumped in now that virtual tabletops are a thing. So like just doing more of that is what I want. I want this to be millions and millions of people playing these games and just be thriving.
Yep. We're gonna have a virtual tabletop question here in a second, so
yeah,
you'll be able to answer a bit more on that. Following that is a great question here from Jim also, which is, you are a busy guy between regular Paizo duties, freelancing, and podcasting. When you think about it, does it seem like you have 4 more jobs? Or is it more like you have one job as a game designer with a lot of different parts?
I'd call it one job with like auxiliary ways to like improve my skills for that job. So I'm running Valiant on No Direction. To me, that is, I'm running a game. I happen to record it and then have to edit it, but it's a game first, right? It's fun. It's hanging out first. Same with answering questions about Pathfinder on Legend Lore or here, stuff like that. It's just getting to chat about the stuff I like. if I happen to learn how to edit audio and put podcasts together and stuff along the way, so be it. I can use that in other stuff. I can maybe bring that back into Pathfinder or whatever, but I think I try anymore not to sign up for stuff I am not interested in doing. So like, I don't volunteer for extra work that I don't feel like I don't need to or don't want to. So, hey, do you want to do a podcast for 2E for No Direction? Sure, that sounds like fun. I want to do that. I want to run a homebrew game. I want to get a feel for what homebrewing is and kind of expand on that. I've mostly run pre-written material, so having to homebrew stuff for this long more than just a one shot has been a different experience, and I get to learn a lot of stuff, and I've enjoyed it, and it's all been fun.
And just throwing this out there, first off, Valiant is excellent, so everyone should go out and check that out. In addition, the share lore, especially because not share lore, legend lore, especially because you recently did one on dwarves, which for any other fellow dwarf fans out there, check that out.
Yeah.
Because dwarves always need more attention in Pathfinder. Jim goes on to say, thanks for being awesome, positive part of the community.
Thank you. It's a great community be part of, so it's not difficult at all to be positive about it.
Rules Wizard Rose has a couple of questions here for you. First off, building off of Jim's question, how do you manage juggling all that as social life and sleeping?
Well, a lot of it has been easy because I'm stuck at home, right, for the last year and a half. Who knows, once the world gets back to something like what we used to have, maybe I don't have as much time. But I tend to stay up pretty late. I tend to think about a lot of the stuff I want to do or should be doing or will be doing at other times. So a lot of that brain power is used elsewhere, and then I can just kind of come back and sit and get to it. Though I feel like I can't really add much more to my plate at this point. I could have more free time, right? But I want that to be free time. I still want to hang out. So like I have a dedicated night where I game with my home group and don't do any work related stuff. I have dedicated, like, here's the weekend. I don't really do anything on the weekends. I'm not on stuff unless it's work or interviews or stuff like that. But like, I'm not going to be hosting a thing every other Saturday or whatever. But like, I think I'm right around that balance where I think I'm doing stuff, and it helps that like my wife ends up doing a lot of stuff on her own. She goes on hikes and camping and stuff that she does on her own. That we are very independent people, and it means I don't feel as bad. Like, oh well, 2 of my nights are games and stuff, and I have Valiant every month and this and that. So it's easier to work with that than it would be, I think, in a different dynamic.
Yeah. Rose goes on to ask yes about official video recaps of Paizocon, which I don't know if Paizo's planning on doing. I do know that No Direction has done
there's
a lot
few
of
them
stuff
already up on the Paizo YouTube, actually.
Okay, awesome.
So I'm sure they're going to get put up on there. No Direction is going to have the audio up for people who want to do it in the podcast style. So yeah, I think over the next couple of weeks you should be seeing those. And
very cool.
Access to whatever you need, or at the very least you could hop onto the subreddit, the PF2 subreddit, and I'm sure you get a lot of information that people have noted down if you don't want to wait to hear it out of our mouths.
All right. She also asked, what is your favorite non-core deity?
Ooh, I really like Kurgas for some reason.
He's the god of competition, working out and stuff. Why not?
I think I would say Gruhasta. I don't know. There's something about just like the constant like trying to learn and improve kind of idea, and then like spreading knowledge that I like. Or yeah, if I keep thinking, I'll be like, no, Kazutal, or no, this. There's too many to like not like, so I'll just stick with Gruhasta and Kurgas, two buff buddies up in heaven.
Up in the heavens, arm wrestling.
Nice.
Doing that air arm wrestle thing from the beginning of Predator.
Yep.
I guess her final 2 questions are, was there any considerations to make kobolds dragons in addition to being humanoids? So I guess humanoids with a dragon subtype.
There was. I wasn't privy to it. I mean, that's something that was on the design team. I know we're pushing hard to be like, hey, the kobolds can do a lot of the dragon stuff that you like to see, especially after Ancestry Guide. They get a lot of cool dragon related abilities, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of giving them the dragon trait, I have no clue what's going on internally at the design team.
And do you have any future plans to do a Reddit AMA?
If people want me to, I could. I mean, why not? I have
Apparently, there was the demand right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Everyone go on the Paizo message boards and demand a
infinitely more
Luis
than I
AMA.
have heard before. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from the chat, Jordan?
Well, why, yes, we do. Jess asks, Arcadia AP when? We know the answer to that, when it's announced. Ninja Law 13 asks, how would you do Spelljammer in Galarian?
Would you do it in Galarian? I feel like you'd do it away from Galarian.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say, I feel like that's
No, I think
Starfinder.
What you could do is nab first edition's Distant Worlds, which will have a lot of information about different planets that as they relate to the Galarian timeline. Things are so different in Starfinder. I think you should stick with Distant Worlds, but it also has details on like spacesuits and stuff, and different ships and transport that I think you could then use that as kind of your starting point for making that stuff in 2e. And then maybe just go nab all the alien archives and stat those up in 2e, whatever cool aliens you want, and give them all spaceships and just hang out. Bring back those weird hippo people.
No, those guys are great.
The
Admiral's uniform, I think that image is burned into my mind.
Bring those in. It's your game. But yeah, I think a lot of it is conversion and just having fun with it, and using what we've said about the existing planets in the Galarian star system to go wild.
Nice. All right. Zikaru asks, any hobgoblin weapons in Grand Bazaar? And also, thank you for reposting your question, because I did see it further up and totally forgot about it.
So here's the thing about the hobgoblin. So at the time when we were putting that book together, we weren't as well versed in the rules during our development pass. So what happened is we're like, oh, hobgoblins, they have all these cool weapons, and you got to give them ancestral weapons, right? Because elves have ancestral weapons and stuff. But we realized that in terms of like game balance compared to the other ancestries, that meant that hobgoblins became like the best. Oh, they're the fighter. They can pick any weapon plus all these ancestry weapons. That was a bit too much. So the Pathfinder Society had a ruling, that organized play had a ruling. It's like, hey, here's what their list should be for these ancestry weapon, their ancestral weapon feat. And I think it's just like things like longbow and spear and like four to six or so existing weapons, and it doesn't make any mention about any ancestry weapons. And that's the direction we plan to take when we issue errata for that book.
Okay.
We have a lot of the character guide errata kind of put together, and we're just waiting for a good time to fire it off. I'm pushing to just maybe like, because we typically have a policy of having errata come out with the reprint of the book. I'm trying to see if maybe we can get an FAQ set up for the Lost Omens line, and I just explain like, here's what it should be, and if we do an errata, that's what it's going to be in the updated printing. So if I were to do an FAQ and manage to get that put together, it would say, hey, here's the hobgoblins, here's what the feat should actually say. Sorry, there's not going to be any hobgoblin ancestry weapons, but hobgoblins are still cool, right? Don't expect any hobgoblin ancestral weapons, because a lot of them, they just fight with what other ancestries have created. I understand that it would make sense for them to have an ancestral weapon, but in terms of like what we're trying to shoot for, in terms of the idea of what hobgoblins are, I think it's just more interesting to just be like, they kind of latched onto these existing weapons rather than develop their own, because it's like, why waste time doing that? We can just get to fighting with these weapons. And a potential FAQ section for the Lost Omens would also go through and be like, hey, we know lizard folk have this feat that doesn't make any sense anymore. Let's replace it. And we have a feat ready to go for that for a replacement. I think we need a proper spot to kind of fire that off to share that with people. So if enough people complain to me, I can try to get off my butt and get the FAQ system put together for Lost Omens. And then I can also, because I really want to do that. I know first edition had a lot of time where stuff just kind of was left unanswered, and I tried very hard when I was working on the player companion stuff to go in and clarify and do stuff like that. And I want to continue doing that, but there's the FAQ system or the errata is probably the best way to do that. But FAQ would probably be a lot faster for the sake of what people want. So if I can get that all put together with all the other busy stuff going on, I think we can hopefully have information for a bunch of the Lost Omens books kind of just all blasted out at once, because I have been keeping track of that. And I hope to maybe even hop on the message boards and be like, here, give me all your questions specifically to Lost Omens stuff, and I'll see if I can get an FAQ put together or an errata for that. So the long answer for that, the short answer is, hey, they shouldn't have that many weapons. They have no ancestral weapons. There's not going to be any ancestral weapons, but we're looking to fix all that and give improvements where we can on the Lost Omens line.
Awesome. I mean, I'm a big fan of having an official ruling for pretty much everything. So I would love to see that as well. And a more active like FAQ and all the rest of that. So
chat agrees as well. They would like FAQs.
The big problem with that is that it's very hard to like keep everything together. Like if I see on Reddit someone's like, oh, how does this thing work? I will note it down. If I see on the forum someone will note it down. But like having a proper official channel that's like, here's the official Lost Omens FAQ contender thread or whatever, might make that a lot easier. So might ask for that, or if someone puts it together, it could help me get that all organized and get off my butt and get this FAQ put together.
You need one of those like sites they have where you can like people can post their question, then other people like vote on it or something. That might help you guys out.
I need a GitHub for the Lost Omens line.
So from our Discord, Lord Tilted Axis asks and does clarify that this might not be your wheelhouse, but wants to ask it anyway. Does Paizo know just how much people want official stuff through apps like Foundry? It's that VTT thing I was going to talk about.
I think people beat the drum very loudly about their favorite VTT. The thing is, it always takes work to get it put together, right? Even with something like Foundry, which I think is amazing, how the community can kind of put together a lot of stuff. There's still like official channels that it has to go through. There has to be a process where get official art and all that stuff together. We put out a bunch of bounties for Foundry, and I think that is us dipping our toe to see like, is this going to work? How's this process? Refining that process. So I would imagine if you bought a bunch of those and told everyone else that was playing Pathfinder on Foundry to buy those, it would end up kind of fast tracking all of that and getting more of them. But I definitely feel like we push all the stuff out that we can to our partners and hope to try to accommodate that as best as we can. So with Foundry now in the mix, I'm sure it's just a matter of time that you'll be seeing more Foundry stuff. Whether or not it'll be all the Foundry stuff that you want, we'll have to wait and see. But at the very least, I feel like the ball is rolling on that, and hopefully be seeing more of that in the days to come.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would 100%. I'll have to go find them and buy them because I am a lazy prepper. So being able to pay like however much for something to be fully fleshed out, like an entire book of an AP or something, I think it would be worth its weight in gold as somebody who doesn't have enough prep time to go put some stuff together and be able to run it. I know that's one of the biggest barriers right now with people being remote to somebody starting GMing is how much setup goes into just getting everything, even on Roll20, how much it takes to get everything set up and working. It's a lot more than just knowing the rules. Now you have to like mess with the tool and get the maps aligned and all this jazz.
Yeah,
absolutely. We have another question, or we have a question here from Sith Drummer, who I met recently. He's a very nice guy. Asking, what do you see as your gaming industry milestones? Watershed moments where you, quote, leveled up as a tabletop RPG professional?
Oh boy, I think there's a few of those. I mean, the first one is just getting my first product, right? The very first thing I ever did was write a module for Adventure a Week Games, and got paid for it, right? The very first thing I wrote, I got paid for it, so that's a huge thing. Next would be getting my first Paizo assignment, then getting. I mean, the obvious one is getting a job at Paizo.
Yeah,
is one. And then I think some of the big stuff I've done since working with Paizo, like present some of the arcade material I have, which is fantasy that is relatively untouched. I feel in the history of the game, doing big things like the assistive items to me are huge. Wheelchairs and all that stuff. Bringing those in, those are now the moments that I look forward to, that are the big moments. Because I mean, at this point, other than like taking James Jacobs' job, right? Like what else? Like it would be another milestone.
Yeah. You heard it here. He's after James Jacobs' job.
So yeah, at this point, it's just like doing the big things that people want, or that I feel would really help expand the game or the industry and the profession, or the hobby as a whole.
Awesome. So we're running a little short on time. So how about we do a rapid fire here?
Sure.
So whatever comes to you off the cuff. How's that? Sith Drummer also asks, if you stumbled into a mysterious demiplane where time had no meaning and you could create whatever you wanted, independent of release schedules and crunch time, what would you research and or work on, or would you just take the time for some well-deserved rest?
Well, if I have unlimited time, I mean, I'm gonna take the rest anyway, right? But I think I would do the that Monster Hunter thing I was talking about. That'd be fun. But the other thing I think I'd do would be bring over my homebrew campaign that I had back in the day when I was playing 4th edition D&D, that I was putting together just like by chance. Like I eventually was putting threads together and stuff, and I think I have a really cool idea for like how to present a setting / campaign, like adventure hybrid thing. I don't know, it would take a lot of work to figure out, and this unlimited demiplane, great, I'm sure I have it sorted out by the end of it.
Awesome. We got a couple of them. We've got a lot of questions here from Graph, so I'm going to go burn through these real quick. If you could write for another game system or product line, what game system / setting would you want to work on or create?
I want to write for the Star Wars RPG. That game's
Nice.
cool, and then you get to play with Star Wars, which is pretty cool. I like the Genesis system, the kind of the core mechanics of that a lot, and I mean, particularly Star Wars. That's great. Fantasy Flight makes a lot of games that I really like. I love Eldritch Horror and a bunch of the other stuff they put out. So if anyone from there is listening, hook me up, I guess, or at least tell me who to email so you can then critique whether or not I'm worth it.
Yep, there you go. So all of our path folk just need to forward this this little clip on to them.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Is there any role-playing system or setting that you think is underrated?
Ooh, here, let me turn behind me and look at my RPGs. I don't know. They all rule in their own way. I think the Chronicle of Darkness, so New World of Darkness, World of Darkness stuff has kind of like fallen to the wayside. Like it was much more popular in the 90s, and I think it still is cool. I've only checked out the New World of Darkness newer stuff, but storytelling dice pool game I think is super fun. I've had a lot of fun every time I've played in it.
That's actually what I started on, was Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse.
I don't know if it's underrated, but when you're steeped in Pathfinder, you don't see other stuff. The other game I'd say is Torg. Ron Lundeen runs Torg, Torg Eternity, and that game is super duper fun. I think everyone should check that out. It's very much what is an action movie going to be represented as. Here you go. here's Torg. You can do all the wild, crazy stuff you want, and really take control of the game with the mechanics that are part of it.
Awesome. What is your dream team of 4 other people, including even dead people, to play a long-running campaign with?
Oh my gosh, this is a nightmare of a question.
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh boy. Let's go. You said living or dead, right?
Says living or dead,
but not including fictional and non-fictional.
It just says anyone that you not counting anyone that you currently or have recently played
so
with.
I guess I have to use real people.
Yes.
I think Shakespeare would be fun.
The bard himself.
I think. Oh, this is so hard. Let's. King Arthur was a real dude, right? Sure, let's go. Let's go with Amelia Earhart. She seems like a cool lady. And let's bring in. Oh, I don't know. This is really weird. This is probably not who I would pick if I had time to think, but I'm just gonna say Martin Luther King Jr. Let's see what he thinks about RPGs.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. If you could go back in time as an invisible ghost, what single event would you go witness? Graph getting really philosophical here with me.
Oh boy. What's some super big mystery that history would love to solve? And then I don't tell anyone about it. Let's. I don't want to. There's particular answers that I feel like maybe I shouldn't say these because like they invite specific stuff. So let's go back as invisible ghosts to sometime before the burning of the Library of Alexandria, so I can just invisibly ghost read everything that's in there.
That's a good option.
It's a good option. Unfortunately, he just said you go back as an invisible ghost, not that you know like Sumerian and all the Greek and all that. I guess.
Yeah, but
time.
I have
his time.
You can go to that demi plane of endless time and learn Sumerian.
There you
go. Is Eleanor Farron naturally brilliant, or did she get that way through hard work and gumption?
She's a naturally brilliant hard worker. I think she is a very creative, amazing person on her own, and then just like is a workhorse when she's great. I don't know. I feel like secretly she is the, you would expect like, oh, Luis and Eleanor, 1-1, 50-50 do the work on Lost Omens. It's like Eleanor's pulling so much more weight than I am, I feel, just because she's got so many cool ideas and ends up doing a lot of amazing work. I'm sure we'll just keep doing this tango forever, back and forth, complimenting each other. But that's what I think. She's amazing.
I agree. This next question I think is actually really for us. When is Eleanor going to be interviewed by Find the Path? We need to make that happen.
We do need to make that happen.
Very impressed.
I know some people that work at Paizo that can maybe get you in contact with her.
That would be great. I would appreciate that. So I'd love to have an opportunity to talk to her about some of her fantastic additions to the Adventure Path line also.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are prepare your ego. You are a god king of Paizo for a day and can change any rule in any way that you want. What single rule would you change and how?
Oh man. I would have gone back to 1E and destroyed combat expertise. Just unmake it entirely. It's deleted from time as if it never was.
Is that because of the feat tax, or
yeah,
you just
feat
don't
tax
like
and like everything that comes with it? Just like, I don't know. I know we were beholden to a lot of like 3.5 stuff in the process, but it's like seeing how like 2E how drastically changed. It's like, well, if you had to keep 1E as it is, let's just push it a little further to being its own thing. And I'm sure that has like this domino effect of like, well, if combat expertise doesn't exist, that means you don't need all this and this and that for all these other feats. But that's what I would do to get rid of the one rule. I've had a lot of chances to actually yell and be like, get rid of this thing to Mark and the designers during the playtest and stuff. I kept yelling about how the signature skills was not going to go over well. And wouldn't you know it, they're not in the final game.
All right. Well, Graf has 7 more questions that he posed.
Are you serious?
So,
wow, man.
Yeah. I'm afraid, though, we are running out of time here. So I'm going to ask this last one.
Okay.
Which is, what should we be asking you?
Oh, boy. You know how there's like booths that get set up at cons. It's like, tell me about your character.
Mm-hmm.
So people can blab about the stuff they want to. I basically need to tell me about the stuff you've written and get to like be excited about all the stuff you've written. It's like, I want to talk about Beastkin. I want to talk about Band on the Run. I want to talk about all the stuff I've done over the years, and just like get a chance to be like, let me tell you about this whole process and why I did this and how I think this is super cool and blah, blah, blah. And I did it and I feel great about it, but that's definitely not the type of person I am. But also I kind of am, because I am telling you now to ask me about it.
All right. So everyone make a list of these things and then go up to Luis whenever the next time you get a chance to talk to him. Or
yeah.
who knows, maybe we'll get a post-Gen Con interview and we can just talk about the things that Luis wants to talk about. That would be great. So, yeah. Do we have any remaining questions from chat before we go?
Let's see. Lots of quips, lots of jokes. People talking about how they've already bought the bounties on Foundry. Do. Let's see here.
Well, while Jordan goes through that real quick, I do want to give a shout out, however, to all the fantastic podcast work that you've been doing recently. And again, I encourage everyone to go and check that out, because the legend lores I find are invaluable resources. So,
how do you have time to listen to all of those if you're doing all the work you're doing for?
Unfortunately, I have a day job that involves some data entry. I suppose, fortunately. So just plug those in. And
I've thought about it. I feel like I would really love data entry, just like sitting there enjoying stuff and like.
I loved data entry when I did it. Like I did it back in like college and stuff. Loved it. Like I would tune out completely and just listen to podcasts, audiobooks, you name it. And
my only complaint with it is that I sit there and go, how much editing could I be doing right now?
I did not want to see you full-time edit and find out that you just spend like 20 hours an episode. Like that'd be nuts.
I would, given the time.
Oh, good gracious.
Every episode would be like a work of art. I mean, I'm proud of every episode right now, but
just imagine how much better it could be if everybody donated to the Patreon.
It's true. So any questions before we wrap this up?
Yep, one last one from Ninja Law 13. Can you tell us a little bit more about the elementalist archetype?
No, I can't, because that's in Secrets of Magic. That's a rule book. But maybe I'll tease a different archetype that I can tell you about. Well, I've mentioned Grand Bazaar has archetypes, so I'll just name drop that one of them is called the Captivator, and leave it at that. So
oh man,
well, fortunately we don't have to wait too much longer to find out.
Yeah, just a few more months.
Yep, we'll let the speculation run wild.
So I suppose to wrap things up, where can people find out more about your work, Luis?
I like to try to spell out my Twitter handle, but that takes so long. So I had a whole website made, luisloza.com, where you can just go click that little button at the top instead and find there. I've been doing, putting out a few things recently. I put out a few lineages for the Aasimar and the Tiefling. I'm going to put out a brand new Versatile Heritage on Friday on my website. So come look at that. It's not anything that, so it's not like, oh, new Aasimar stuff or whatever. It's brand new. So look forward to it. if you are part of my Patreon, you've already been seeing that, and I'm looking to expand on more stuff in the future. But yeah, luisloza.com, that's where you find me, or I'm on probably every Pathfinder related Discord, and you can probably just tag me for questions and stuff there.
I was gonna say very active in no direction.
Yeah.
Awesome. And before we sign off, actually, I meant to include this at the top, but I'll include this now because I didn't include this at the top. June is Pride Month, and so we do want to give a shout out out there to the amazing LGBT community that is built as part of the honestly the Pathfinder greater community, and has contributed so much to making Pathfinder what it is.
Yes. Support your trans communities. Give them your money to help them out.
Absolutely. So yeah, just want to make sure we shout out there, recognize, and tell you all that we are glad that you are a part of our community, and yeah. I'm not good when it comes to
I couldn't said it better myself because I'm not good at words. So
it's almost like we get paid for doing this, but still not great at words.
Nope, still not great at words.
But yeah, want to make sure that is acknowledged and recognized. And again, Luis, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of the hard work that you are doing over there at Paizo, making dreams and creating worlds for us to explore.
Yeah, it's a blast. I mean, it's definitely probably the favorite job I've ever had. And that includes jobs where I get free food every day. So like this is saying something.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, and I look forward to I look forward to long may James Jacobs continue his reign, but I look forward to when we can interview as creative director for the whole system, I suppose.
Oh boy.
As you continue to ascend up the
I guess so.
what is it, 32 steps or however many steps it is up to the throne of
Razmir. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's more James or Jason Bowman's shtick.
Yeah,
that is true.
I don't think I can take Bowman in a fight. So I'm not even gonna try.
No, he's bigger. Yeah, I guess we'll sign off there. So until next time, Pathfolk, good luck.
Bye, Pathfolk.
Bye.